Hello world, welcome to the 197th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm on the site of the first day's battle of the three-day Battle of Gettysburg between the South, which is the Confederacy, and the Union troops. And I'm linking this all with climate change, so bear with me. Right now I'm at the site of the east side where the first real contacts between the Union and Confederacy occurred, and this is some of the most vicious fighting of the entire battle, and people don't even know about it. So this is the North Carolina monument. Where you are is the Iron Brigade monument, and there are three groups from three different states, but they wore unique hats and people were easily recognizable, and the South realized they weren't up against militia when they came up this hill. And there's a creek right down here about 50 feet away or 80 feet away. It's Willoughby Run, and what they did is they came across in force on their second attempt in the afternoon of July 1st, 1863, and they tried to push up this hill, and it was an honor to have the flag, the Confederate flag or Union flag, and be the one carrying it. Well, what happened was 4 of the flag bearers were already dead, shot dead before they even got to the creek. By the time they got to the edge of the creek, another flag bearer was shot dead. They got through the creek, another flag bearer was shot dead that took up the flag. So they kept taking up the flag, and by the time they got to this point, I think we're up to 8 flag bearers or so, and it had already been shot dead or mortally wounded. And then they kept fighting up this hill, and they got to the point where they're this far away from each other, toe to toe, hundreds of guys shooting each other for an hour, pushing each other back and forth. And eventually the South overwhelmed the North and pushed them back to Seminary Ridge, which was about a quarter mile away, no, half mile away from here. But they had to fight through these woods beyond, and this is a whole thicket through here. This road was not here, obviously. And this is an example of, by the time they got to this point, though, and through the woods, they had already lost 14 flag bearers. So whoever touched the flag ended up dying with the flag. So one of the guys said, I don't have the quote, but essentially is you pick up this flag, you're a dead man. But it was a point of honor, and that's what they did. And the amazing thing was, with the 26th North Carolina or anyone else, the people were from the same location, so they knew each other mostly, and they lost horrific amounts. I think this North Carolina group, just on the July 1st, lost 81% of their men, and then the Iron Brigade lost 73% of their men. So it's a horrific loss. It was a lesson in stupidity. It was picking up the flag in spite of all the evidence to the contrary that you probably shouldn't do that. But this is an example where the South kept fighting and fought for the reason of dogma, tenacity in spite of all evidence to the contrary. You're going to die if you continue on this path. And somehow the corporations of slavery got the ordinary person like you and I, whatever, to be convinced that fighting for the corporation of slavery, it wasn't about that. It was about states' rights and things like that. Because you're down here. Well, the poor people, the average person didn't have a slave. They didn't have any intention of having slaves, and they couldn't afford slaves, and da-da-da. And they were convinced that by the corporations that this was their fight. And we see that today with a lot of things, that people engage in political battles and loss of family, and just because of political ideology, you lash yourself to your politicians, and it's absolute insanity. You step back, look at what they're doing or not doing, really what they're doing, not your dogma, not your stepping out and going, oh, this guy's all about that, or this woman's all about that. They all get blended into this corporation. They're bought and sold by the time they get to Congress and the presidency. And they not only become sociopaths, but a lot of their actions are psychopathic. And this is psychopathic, doing this type of fighting, killing each other toe to toe over what? The obvious answer was you cannot own another person. I mean, this is basic stuff. And you got to treat others as you expect to be treated. And they're willing to die for a cause that was not their fight. And it never should have happened. The framers of the Constitution did the 3/5 clause with slavery rather than abolish it altogether and pay the Africans that had come over illegally, a fair wage and just given them their freedom, it would have worked out fine. And they chose not to. They chose to enslave and make record profits, as are our oil corporations right now, and convincing the average jerk-off that this is their fight. They need to go over and fight for oil and our defense and everything like that. It's all about oil, basically. It comes down to fighting over a pile of rocks so we can keep our cars going and you know, everything going and the lights on, rather than thinking of alternative means and working together as a world. And we're killing millions of people, you know, and as a result of that, and somehow the corporations have convinced and the politicians have convinced the average person that this is their fight, and it's not. This is what it is you're being convinced and fooled as to what the fight is really all about, and we're fighting each other rather than fighting the powers that be and the extremely rich, and we're being played. So anyways, this all links in with climate change, as I just said. You know, time is short. All evidence to the contrary, we're going to die if we keep up this path. This here was death of unimaginable horror, but we're seeing it now throughout the whole world, and especially throughout the United States. You're seeing floods. Pakistan's having horrendous floods. Italy just had floods last night. You're seeing famine around the world, the Horn of Africa. You're talking tens of millions of people are starving to death right now in Africa. You're seeing a drought out west, your worst drought in 1,200 years. Europe has been going through their worst drought in 500 years. You're seeing fire. You know, wildfires all over the place. Spain and Portugal lost 2,000 people last summer that just passed. You know, and out west, there are 93 major fires now. It was 70, I thought, and now it's 93, evidently. And, you know, what we're going to risk is in the future, and this sounds insane to people, and I'm sure it does, but as the ice caps keep melting, the weight shifts from the ice caps to the oceans. And you're going to start seeing plate tectonic shifts, and that's going to involve volcanoes and earthquakes and things like that. And God forbid, if you live on an earthquake fault, and we won't talk about California and other places like that to live on earthquake faults, but you're risking your lives, and you're already got several blows to the head, and you're on the ground, and now the earthquake's going to hit, and I wouldn't want to be you. But stay out there, see what happens, and you'll come tumbling back, as General Hancock said on the second day's battle over that I talked about a couple talks ago. So the Antarctic is melting. Thwaites Glacier, they've discovered, is actually melting underneath very, very quickly due to sea intrusion and warmer waters underneath. And the ice shelves will give way. And what that does is unleash the cork in the bottle, and the rest of the shelf slides in the ocean. And that causes the rest of the West Antarctic to slide into the ocean. So this might not happen immediately, might not happen for years, or it could happen immediately. And what that represents is, just by itself, is 10 feet of sea level rise. Devastating for the entire world. Basically, your world's economies are done once the West Antarctic goes. And it could go at any time, who knows. All they need is some severe heating, as we're seeing around the world. And why wouldn't it heat there? It's heating here. Why wouldn't Antarctica heat up? The oceans are warming up, obviously, somewhere, because the heat gets transferred in the oceans. The oceans absorb up to 90% of our heat. So, you know, eventually it's coming, and it's not being addressed by the media or anybody else or politicians, because they can't see forward other than trying to make profits on each other and the backs of the average citizen. So you're seeing a crazy amount of rise in energy costs in Europe and other places, and they blame the war in Ukraine. What this comes down to is greed and lack of forward thinking. They've deliberately put us down this hallway and not allowed new technologies to come around, new thought processes on things, and they're thwarting any forward effort. You know, they're making record profits with the oil companies. Go check it out, see why. Oil right now is $85 a barrel. The temperature is far out of line for what should be happening. They're saying natural gas is a bridge fuel. Well, a bridge only works as if you get off the bridge, go from one side to the other. They're not doing that. They're building natural gas factories, and that's nothing but methane. Don't kid yourself. You turn on your stove, you power up your hot water heater, things like that with natural gas. It's nothing but methane, and it either turns into carbon dioxide or methane itself in the process escapes in the atmosphere, which is horrific. So don't fool yourself thinking you're doing a natural gas bridge fuel to the future. Actually, it is a death fuel. You know, the idea of using natural gas as a bridge is the same thing as cutting off your arm when all you have is some broken fingers and toes. You know, the fingers and toes are fixable. You cut off your arm, that's forever. And that's what we're doing with this natural gas transition thing. We're showing once you build a factory, it's going to stay around for 20 to 30 years, and it's not going anywhere. So obviously the dollar incentive is not there to come up with alternative fuels at that point. What we do need is research and development for ideas as to how to move forward. Yeah, we can't use lithium because we're digging up the earth. They're exactly right about that. But there are alternatives out there, and we're not even attempting to find them. There are alternatives we don't even know about because we're pouring our money into the oil companies and fighting wars. For example, the United States budget last year, I think, was 50-some% going to the military, with another 8% or whether going to veterans affairs as a result of the military. It's like you're spending a horrific amount of your discretionary funds, 60% towards military use, and it returns nothing. You wouldn't have these battles if we had a secure energy future for the entire world, a secure water future for the entire world. But we're not thinking ahead. We're just stuck in our dogma. So we're not going forward with renewables. We're staying with the old technology, which is batteries, which is metal. And these metals have been used since the Egyptian times, 5,000 years ago. You know, we're not moving forward at all. So ask yourself, why aren't the politicians talking about climate change? These people are from California. These people are from Kentucky. Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, Kentucky. Places flooding and nothing's being done. Flooding, and nothing's being done. You have places on fire. Texas, California, Oregon, Utah, Arizona, Connecticut, Wyoming, Montana, Georgia, Louisiana, New York, Massachusetts. All of them are going through extreme climate change right now. And no politician around the world is making waves. No one is saying, you know what? I'm not authorizing one bit of legislation until you guys start addressing the issue of climate change. And I mean really addressing it, not some stupid climate change package for inflation or whatever, the deficit reduction thing, you know, tying it in with everything. It is a strong enough issue to stand by itself. These things of putting amendments onto bills is insanity also. It's not right. They should have forced to vote. If you want to vote against climate change and your children's future and your children's lives right now, because people are dying right now of climate change, also your life, then I want those congressmen or presidents or whoever to be on the line and say, no, I don't want to do that. And then you know in the future that these people are not on your side at all. So you're not seeing anything from Biden, Harris, anyone in Congress, you know, and where are the protests? You know, I named off all these states. They all have colleges. We're in the September right now, and the college kids are doing absolutely nothing. This is embarrassing. This is ridiculous. This is your future, you college kids. Please pass this on and share it to other college kids. Go, what the hell's going on? You guys got to get your shit together. Because in Vietnam, when it happened, the college kids led the way in protesting. That's what got the whole course of the war changed. And they settled out. And now look at Vietnam. They're capitalists just like us. And now, what was the war all about? Trying to make them capitalists and try to get an industry in there. Well, eventually that worked out. So all fights end up on the ground. So you got to get to the basic reason why things are the way they are, and cut to the chase and quit blowing the crap out of each other, make record profits for the military-industrial complex. I'll watch for the drone and see if they attack me in a second here. So where are the protests in the colleges? Not seeing it. Where are the media reports about climate change? Yeah, they'll report on an event, unless the Queen's dead, and then they'll report that for a whole week. But they'll report on an event, but not associate that with climate change. There are no exposés. There are no documentaries. This event is the biggest event in human history. Get that, biggest event in human history. There'll never be another event like this that'll come along, because this is a world-ending mass extinction event. And this is where we're headed. We're in the middle of it right now, and it's happening all over the world, and people still aren't recognized. The media's still not recognizing. The politicians still aren't recognizing. And there's something sick going on in the environments around the whole country and the whole world as to what's happening and not happening. So there are no documentaries, no nothing. So this is total insanity. There is no political, this is not political, this is reality. And what needs to happen is Democrats and Republicans and worldwide, they need to change their thought process. They need to move forward and quit with the dogma, because this is what happens when you're in dogma. You know, people die for no apparent reason, and all fights end up on the ground anyway. And you might as well just cut to the chase and figure out what the root problem is and go forward with that. Otherwise, we're going to have mass casualties, potential nuclear outcome with everyone, and it's not a good solution. And what happens is everyone dies that way instead of having a good future and trying to figure out what's going on. This problem is not insurmountable. At the present pace, it's insurmountable. Doom and gloom, yep, that's going to rule the day, because our politicians and world leaders are doing absolutely nothing, and we're going to die. This is where we're headed. This is what's happening right now to people right now. It's not happening to you because you're watching a broadcast, but you're probably knowing people who are being forced out of their homes and things like that, and you know of people that this is happening to because you see it on the news, but they don't report why it's happening. So this is what's going to happen. This is going to happen to you. This is going to happen to me, and bad things are going to come along, and eventually we're running out of food, and then who knows horrifically what else could happen. If you can imagine it, it's going to happen, because this is what happens when there's a mass extinction event. So we need to move forward. We need to change our dogma and figure out what's important. Point out what, you know, we can't stay on this hill. Okay, you're going to die if you stay on this hill. If you hold your position like we are on this bridge fuel and not doing anything else, we're going to die. And we can't get off we need to get off this bridge, and if we don't get off the bridge, we're going to die. You know, so take an example of these people here that died for no apparent reason other than the basic fact that they weren't treating humans like humans. That's what it came down to. And right now, this is what's happening with us. We're not treating humans like humans. We're not recognizing the dollar and whatever monetary thing you have in your country. That's what's ruling the day. Corruption, greed, and not thinking about the future. And what's weird about it is these politicians have kids and family, and they think they're going to get away with it. The billionaires think they're going to build a bunker or fly to Mars. Good luck with that, because you know what? A bunker is a tomb, and flying to Mars is a death sentence. So I invite you next week to be at Climate Change number 198. Please share and pass. Facebook is screwing with me again, and I'm having to do all sorts of weird things just to get this video online. So I'll catch you next week, and that'll be on September 23rd. See you later. Bye.